involve the young people in our church. And I do want to say, Gavin, thank you for saying, that they can sit back and relax, but no, you cannot. All right, I want you to know, when I bring the word, it may be directed towards the youth in a way, but it is from the word of God, which means it is for the whole church. All right, so the message I bring today is for everyone. Now, hopefully there is a youthful bent on it, but it will not be just for the youth. It will be for all of us. There will be some youthful comments in there, and we will concentrate on some youth in Scripture, but it is for all of us. See, as the youth director, I do not believe it is my job to set aside the youth, but rather to engage and involve the youth. I believe it is our job as church families not to have special events for them only and expect them to grow in that. The only way they can grow is as a part of the church family. Just like the only way we can grow is a part of the church family. Learning from generations ahead of us and behind us as a church family. See, I do believe that as a church in general, not necessarily here or anywhere, but in the church general, we have been too comfortable being separate. Too comfortable finding the things we like and kind of sticking to them instead of getting in the mud, getting in the grime, and learning from each other and mixing in well together. Too often we've been too comfortable with divisions, right? And so that's not my goal as the youth director. My goal as a youth director is to mentor young people to be active parts of their church right now. All right. One of my pet peeves, and I'm glad no one said it here while I was here, because then I say this and then it gets awkward with that person afterwards. But one of my pet peeves is the saying that the youth are the future of our church. I even hate it when they say it about kids. Kids are the future of our church. When we say that, we imply that they are not important at the present moment. When we say someone is the future, it means, you're not here right now. I don't know about you, but they're here right now. They're within our presence. And we need to make sure that they realize they aren't the future, they are the present of our church. Just as every one of you. None of you are the past of our church, no matter where you are in parts of your life. You are the present of our church. We are all equal parts. And we need to make sure that we make up the church family. All right? So as we pursue forward, let's go forward. And I like to start off with a story about myself, especially when I was a kid. I feel like you get to know a little bit about me. I get to exercise some trauma in my life that way. Tell you stories about me when I was growing up. This particular story happened when I was about the age of 7 years old. When I was 7, I had two older brothers. I still have two older brothers. I have two older brothers, but they're way older than me, right? So when I was 7, my middle brother, he was 14 or 15, depending on where we're at. So he was 7 to 8 years older than me. My oldest brother, he is 15 years older than me. Maybe I think he's 16 years older than me. He doesn't like to hear that. But anyways, he's much older than me. So by this time, he had moved out of the house. He moved out of the house when he was 18. He was already out. So I was just a little rugrat running around there. And both of my parents worked. So my brothers were often set in charge of looking after me. All right? How many of you in this room are the youngest in the family? Do we have any youngest? Yes. I love it. Any oldest in the family? Oh, okay. Well, I won't hold it against you. So as the youngest in my family, I realized that a lot of times your brothers didn't always treat you the most kind. Let's put it that way. You were kind of a guinea pig for a lot of things. You were their live action figure, right? So that they'd mess around with you and all these kind of things. And so I was remember much younger, and they had to take care of me, and they weren't always very excited about that. But also, as a youngest brother to two older brothers, I looked up to my brothers a lot. I loved hanging out with them. I wanted to hang out with them. Wherever they would go, I would try to go. I would try to follow them. I Love doing it. Now, do you think they love that? Nah, they didn't like that too much. Get away, stop it. But many times they had to because, well, I was the youngest and my parents were busy working. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I'm getting over a little something, so forgive me for the coughs today. But they had to take care of me and watch over me. But many times when I wanted to do something with them, they would try to shun me away. They'd be like, no, you can't do this. Oh, come on, please, I want to do this. No, you're too small, you're too little. I heard that oftentimes from my brothers. No, you're too little, you're too small. Oh no, you're just gonna ruin it for me. But they had to include me a lot of times because Mom would force me upon them. Well, this particular day was a hot summer's day. I think it was a weekend because my mom was home this day. And I saw my brother and one of his neighborhood friends called Frank. My brother's name is Jose. So Jose and Frank were in the middle of doing something, and it looked very exciting. I just saw them very busy. They were excited. They were getting all excited about something. And I said, I want to be a part of what's happening. Because I could tell when something fun was about to happen. And something fun was about to happen, right? They went to their rooms. They got into their bathing suits and some other stuff. And I was like, oh, this looks fun. They got a bucket. They got a bag. And I looked at the bag, and the bag had these colorful water balloons in them. They weren't water balloons yet, but they were balloons. And I was like, what are you going to do with those? Well, we're going to make water balloons. And I was like, yes, I'm in. And so I started following him, and my brother's like, no, you're not in. What are you talking about? Well, I want water balloons. I'm like, no, you can't. We're having a water balloon war, and it's all the older kids, and you can't do it. And say they go to the spigot, and they start filling up their water balloons, and I'm starting to get a little upset because I want to be a part of this water balloon war, right? They're talking about it. They're talking about their strategy, and I could see them fill all these colorful water balloons. And as a 7-year-old, all my senses are just being piqued at this point in time, right? I didn't have any electronics to go to and try to soothe my feelings. No, all I had was this moment in time, right? I had them filling up these water balloons. My only option was to go to my room and read a book. And let's be honest, I didn't read very many books when I was a kid, all right? I wasn't the best reader. Don't hold it against me, please. But they were filling up these water balloons. They had two big giant buckets that they were filling up, and this was just exciting. But once again, they told me no. I said, okay, all right, let me try this again. I'll ask nicer. Maybe I was just too excited. I'll go to my brothers, and I said, Jose, can I please be a part of this water balloon war? I feel like I can be really helpful. I feel like I can really help. Please let me be a part of this water balloon war. And I did my pitch, and he looks at me, and he goes, no way. Get out of here. I was like, why? Why? I can throw. What? Give me one. I'll show you I can throw. And they're like, no, you're too small. What's going to end up happening, one of our friends is going to hit you in the face, and we're going to laugh, and you're going to cry. And I was like, no, I won't cry. I promise I won't cry. I could do it. Please, I won't cry. And at that point in time, I start to cry. Right? Trying to prove my point that I won't cry by crying. I'm sure some of you have done that in the past, but here I am trying to hold it in. No, I promise I won't. They're like, no, you see, you're already cried. You're just a baby. You're too small. You're going to ruin the water balloon war. We're going to lose because of you. And you're going to cry, and then Mom's going to come out, and she's going to make us quit. And I was like, no. And then those magic words came in my mom. Oh, Mom's going to make you quit, huh? Maybe I should go tell Mom now. Ooh, that was a winning statement right there. Because all of a sudden, my brother knew, oh, wait, he can't go tell Mom because Mom's going to force us to use him anyways. So it's like, oh, all right, hold on. Let me talk to Frank. You know, it's really Frank that I have to convince, right? So he goes and he talks to Frank. They go to the side and they start talking and they start scheming. And I'm like, yes, I did it. I got it. I'm in the war. They're going to have to give me some water balloons. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to start throwing water balloons. I'm going to be so excited about it. I'm so great. And so I'm very excited about this proposition. I had done exactly what I needed to do to be involved in this war. I threatened them with Mom. And so they come back and they say, all right, you're in. And I was like, yes, awesome. And so I start grabbing some water balloons. Like, no. We've got the most important job for you ever. All right. As a 7-year-old, I had never heard this from my brothers. I'd always been told, you're not doing the most important thing. You're doing this other thing. And I was like, what? I got the most important job? They're like, yes, you are going to be the key to us gaining victory in this water balloon war. All right? So come with us. So I went with them. They set me on the front porch and like, this is going to be the base of our water balloon war. I'm like, all right, awesome. So they sit me here and they're like, all right, stand here. They go get the big buckets and they set them in front of me and I start to pick them up. Like, no. Okay. So this is what's going to end up happening. You're going to stand here and you are going to guard the water balloons. See, we're going to go out and we're going to have these water balloons and every time we need them, we need to come back here and get them. All right? So as you guard them so that no one else can come here and steal them, it's the most important part. Without these, we don't win. And I am buying this hook, line, and sinker, by the way. I'm like, yeah, this is important. So when they come, can I go throw them? I'm like, no. Just yell for us. Okay. Now that didn't seem quite as exciting as grabbing some and throwing them at them, but okay. This is an important job. No, this is the most important thing I could do is stand here and guard the water balloons. Yes. Okay, I will do it. And like, all right, this is awesome. And so they started the water balloon war, and they started grabbing water balloons. They started running back and forth, and I was just so giddy and excited. And I was like, I'm doing something important. And I'm just living the dream at the moment. But it only took me about 5 minutes to realize I had been duped. It took me 5 minutes of watching them run back and forth with huge smiles in their face. Yeah, and then grabbing more and going back. And I'm just sitting here. I realized I'm really bored right now. I'm not doing anything. Like none of the other kids from the neighborhood were trying to steal any. They didn't care about me. I saw some running by and I was like, stay away. They didn't even look at me. I had no real influence in the moment, in the matter. And I realized, wow, I'm not so smart at this point in time. They tricked me. I'm not important at all. And as I realized that, I started to get angry. You ever get angry? Yeah, of course you are. Yeah. I started to get angry. I started to feel hot inside. And I started to resent this job, and I started to resent what my brothers had done, and I started to hate this water balloon war, something that I wanted to be a part of. And these water balloons, I was like, I can get them, and I picked one up. I can throw these. I can do it. And sure enough, I did. I took one, and I chucked it. And I chucked it right into the middle of the road, and I saw it pop. Poof. And it was so satisfying. Oh, wow. And I like, yeah, you see? And I took another one, and I threw it, and I took another one. And just in a blind rage of fit and excitement, I started just chucking the water balloons over and over and over and watching the little colorful shards explode in the road and the road start to become soaked with the water in the Florida sun. And I was like, oh, this is so exciting. And I just kept throwing. And before I knew it, I went to pick up the last one and they were all gone. Wait, they're all gone. What am I going to do when my brother comes back? The realization hit me that I had just thrown about 50 water balloons into the road, and there was all these colorful little shards of the pieces of water balloon. The road was soaked, but now I had to face my brother. And just moments later, he starts running around the corner, and I am just petrified with fear, like, oh no, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? They come to get the water balloons, and they noticed there's none in there. And they look at me, and they're like, what happened to the water balloons? And both Frank and him are looking at me, and I'm like, I point to the road. They look back, and they see the remnants of all the water balloons. And they look at me, and they're like, did you? What, me? Who did this? Who did this? Let us know who did this. And I just said the first words that came out of my mouth. And I just went, Butch! Now, for those of you who don't know, Butch was another kid in our neighborhood. He was another one. He was about the same age as my brothers. Now, poor Butch didn't have the best reputation. Butch was one of the little rough around the edge kids in our neighborhood. And so I don't know if that subconsciously I knew that Butch was the one to blame, because if something happened wrong in the neighborhood, it was probably Butch. So I just said the first words that I had probably been trained subconsciously to say, and I just went, Butch. And they're like, Butch did this? I can't believe Butch did this. How would Butch? And my brother got real mad. He's like, I can't believe Butch would pick on my brother like this. I can't believe. And all of a sudden, he became a good big brother all of a sudden. Right? He's like, I can't believe he did this. He's picking on my little brother and Frank and him. All right, let's go find him and see what he's going to do. Now, what I didn't know is that Butch wasn't really a part of the water balloon war. All right? He hadn't been a part of it. And maybe I had seen his car come by earlier subconsciously, because my brother starts walking over to his house, and sure enough, Butch is getting out of his car, because he had just come from someplace in town, and was walking in the back of his yard. And my brother and Frank go, Butch, where are you? And he's like, what? How dare you? Why did you do that? And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I walk over there, and I do see Butch, like, he's totally confused. What's happening? And my brothers look at me, and they're like, is he the one who did it? And finally, my consciousness came through. And I was like, no. And I ran into the house. My brother came in, and obviously by now he knew that I had done it. And he's like, hey, why did you do this? Like, I was mad. I was upset. And he's like, I told you were too small. I told you couldn't do this. This is exactly what we said. Do you think that made me feel good? At that moment in time, my brother's words had been justified. I had done something that he had expected me to do. He had expected me to be too small, not to be able to handle this moment, to act out, and sure enough, it's kind of what I did, right? But part of the reason why I acted out is because I had been told I was too small. I had been told, well, you're going to have the most important job, but did I have an important job at all? No, I did not have an important job at all. I was just there watching kind of, this was their way of kind of babysitting me. My way of being kind of in there. Now, at some point in our lives, we have been told something to that point, to that degree. Maybe it was when a kid, oh, you're too small, you're too little. Maybe it was at another point, oh, you haven't worked here long enough. Or, oh, you don't have enough experience in this. Or, hey, you need to do more of this. You need to be more of that. You don't have what it takes yet to be a part of what you want to be a part of. And as a child, that really resonates. Oh, you're too small, you're too little, you can't do this. As I grew into teenage years, oh, you're not quite ready. You're the future of our church. Or, hey, maybe someday. And I want to read a story in the Bible that kind of hopefully will turn our thinking around in some of these areas. So now let's go to John. Let's go to John chapter 6. It's a very well-known story, one of the most well-known miracles in the Bible. And I want to point out a few things in here that I think this is a wonderful a wonderful story for it. And now, it is found in 3 of the Gospels. This exact story of the feeding of the 5,000 is found in 3 of the Gospels. But I want to concentrate on John's. And there's a reason why I want to concentrate on John's. And we'll get that into a little bit. but I like John's version the best. All right, let's start at verse 1. Now read with me. Let's all read together. John chapter 6, starting at verse 1. After these things, Jesus went over to the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. Then a great multitude followed him because they saw the great signs he performed and on those who were diseased. And Jesus went on a mountainside, and he sat there with his disciples. So Jesus, as usual, with his teachings and his signs and his healings, a great multitude had followed him, right? So they had followed Jesus. They were with him. Now it was Passover, which means there was probably quite a crowd there. The feast of Jews was near. When Jesus lifted up his eyes, seeing the great multitude come towards them, he said to Philip, all right, now let's get this question. Where shall we buy bread that these may eat? Okay, all right, interesting question. Now verse 6, but he said this to test them, for he himself knew what he was going to do. So Jesus already knew what he was going to do. All right, let me ask you a question. Do you think God already knows what he wants to do with this church? Oh, I'm sorry, this was a question. This is an interaction part. So for those of you who didn't get that, let's say that now. Do you feel like God knows what he wants to do with this church? Oh, that was better. All right. Do you feel like God knows what he wants to do in your life? Good. Not all of you are totally confident, but there's some confidence. God already knows what he wants to do with your life, right? Perfect. We have that established. We see here in this story, Jesus already knew what he wanted to do, but he did want to ask the question of his disciples. And sometimes God does ask us questions. He wants to involve us in his situation. And here he is involving his disciples because he wants them to grow through this situation. So he's like, hey, where should we buy enough bread for all these people to eat? Now, if you had been there and you were one of the disciples, you probably would have been in a panic. All right? Let's just imagine you're having a potluck. You're having a potluck Sabbath, and all of a sudden, a bus full of 500 people come. And the person says, hey, they're here to eat potluck with you. Would there be a bit of a panic? There'd be a bit of a panic, especially the person who's in charge of it, the head deaconess or whoever's in charge of the potlucks here. I can feel you right now already getting worried. Just at the proposition. Oh, that would mess with you. So here Jesus is asking, and Philip is a little bit worried here. And so in verse 7, here's Philip's answer. Philip answered, 200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient for them. Not every one of them may have a little. So basically he's saying, hey, listen, they're this much of bread, we couldn't even give each one of them a bite. He's like, we'd have to work for a long, long time to give these people even one bite. Jesus, what are you talking about? So he's trying to tell Jesus, all right, Jesus, I know you're the preacher, but let me give you the reality of our situation here. That is a lot of people. We have no money. So, there's the situation. Just tell them to go home, right? So, verse 10, Jesus said, hey, go ahead and make the people sit down. Oh, wow. All right, Jesus, this is exciting. All right. Oh, wait. Maybe he's just going to tell them softly, hey, listen, we have no food for you. Here's the last little saying. Now go and eat, right? I bet some of the disciples were doing that. But some of the disciples who probably knew Jesus well and could see it in his face were like, uh-oh, guys. We're in for it. What's going to happen? Now, there was much grass in that place. So the men sat down in number of about 5,000 people. Now, this says just men. Some people do believe, scholars do believe that there were more because they just counted the men. So, but let's just be conservative and say it's just 5,000. That's a lot of people. 5,000 people, and there is no food, and 5,000 sat down there. All right, now that was verse 10. Actually, I skipped a part, and let's go back to that part because that part's important. So verse 8, after verse 7, after Philip says, hey, we don't have enough money. And this portion is why I love John's more. Now let's see if you could figure out why I love John's rendition more. One of the disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, hey, there's a lad here with 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes. But how far will they go among so many? So I don't know what Andrew is doing here. I have no idea. I have no idea why he's bringing this boy to Jesus, because the first thing he does after bringing the boy is he diminishes what the boy has, right? He's like, oh, there's this boy, and maybe he remembers Jesus' stories that, hey, don't stop the little ones from coming to me, please. So it's like, oh, I better not do that. But let me show him how ridiculous it is when we do, right? Or how cute it is, right? So Andrew comes to him and he's like, hey, there's this little boy. He has 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Isn't that cute? I can just imagine his brain. Isn't that cute? And then I see maybe a little bit of sarcasm, or maybe a little bit of I don't know. But he's like, but Jesus, let's be real now. Let's be real. How far is that going to go, Jesus? That's nothing. So the first thing that Andrew does once he introduces the boy to the situation, once he introduces the resources to the situation, what does he do? He diminishes what has been brought. Stop and think about that for a second. Have you ever diminished something in your life? Have you ever diminished your resources, your bank account, your job, your car, your education? Have you ever diminished something you have? No matter how small it is? Is this a lot of food? It's nothing. It was enough for a little boy. It was enough lunch for a little boy, and Andrew brought him, said, see, this is what we've got. Jesus, this is all we got. Can we just get over this and let them go home? And that's when Jesus says, have them sit down. Wow. Pretty amazing situation here. So he had them sit down in the grass. All right. 200 denarii disciples have them. Then Jesus said, make the people sit down. Verse 11, now Jesus took the loaves. So after he has the people sit down, Jesus in verse 11, he takes the loaves. And what does Jesus do? Give me an answer. He gives thanks. Jesus gives thanks for 5 loaves and 2 fishes. That is an amazing part of the story. Think about that. It's not enough for more than one little boy, but what does Jesus do? He gives thanks. Jesus doesn't diminish it. He's thankful for the little bit that was given to him. He praises God for what was put in his hands. When no one else could see the worth of that little boy's lunch, Jesus gave thanks. That, to me, is one of the biggest testimonies of this story. That no matter how little you feel like you have, you should be giving thanks. No matter how much you think more you need, you should be giving thanks. See, there is power when we give thanks, especially in little. There is power when we trust in God, especially when there isn't anything. There is power when we give it to God. And there was almost nothing here, but Jesus gave it to God and he thanked him. By the way, side note here, one of the favorite verses of a lot of young people, by the way, is I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. For some reason, it's one of their favorites. It was my favorite when I was a teenager too. I don't know why. There's something that jives with it because we feel like there's power in it. But I want you to know as a congregation, the context of that verse, by the way, has nothing to do with like warrior stuff or going through tribulations. Do you know what the context of that is? Go read it at some point. It's in the context of being content in what you have. Think about that power. To be thankful for whatever you have, content in any situation. That is when God says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. All right, side note over. All right. So here is Jesus. He's thanking God for this very little bit of food. We all know the story well, but let's go ahead and keep reading. Jesus took the loaves, and when he'd given thanks, he distributed it to the disciples. And the disciples, those were sitting down, and likewise of the fish, as much as they wanted. So he distributed to each one as much as they wanted. So imagine those instructions. I would love to see Peter handing this out, by the way, because I love Peter's personality. I would imagine Peter, he had, all right, well, I've got 5 pieces of bread and a piece of fish in here. They're smaller than the ones. Okay, all right, here you go. And I could see like the first person, take as much as you want. No. And they take like 3 pieces and like, oh, thank you. We only have 4,999 left. Thank you very much. Okay. The next person take it out. All right, we're done. Well, I need another basket of nothing. And then the next person comes out. Whoa, wait a second. And he looks in and there's still what was left. And as he keeps passing, I would just love to see the disciples' reaction as they keep out passing this bread and these fishes. As it just expands and it expands and it never seems to go away. What an amazing, I don't know, I like putting myself in that situation. All right, and so they distributed as much as they wanted. So when they were filled, now listen to this, not only did they get as much as they wanted, everyone was filled. Everyone was satisfied, right? Jesus says, gather up the fragments that remain so that nothing is lost. Therefore they gathered up and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves that were left over from those that had been eaten. And those men, when they had seen the sign that Jesus did, this is truly the prophet who has come into the world. This was the miracle that the crowd said, we need to crown him king. This was the miracle where Jesus had to say, I need to leave because they're going to force me to be king by force if I don't leave. This was such a miracle that everyone there knew without a shadow of a doubt that he could supply for all their needs if they could somehow make him king. This was an amazing miracle, and it happened out of 5 barley loaves and 2 fishes. But what's the key to this story? Who is the key to this story? Always Jesus, but let's go with a human person here. The boy. The boy. And by the way, the boy is only mentioned in John, which I feel like is a travesty. I feel like John did it for a reason. John was probably one of the youngest disciples, if not the youngest disciple. Many thought he was the youngest disciple, right? So I can imagine John being told many times as he was growing up, you're the youngest, get in line. Nah, you're too small, you're too little, you're too young, forget about it, John, go to the back. John, I'm Peter, I'm going to get it done. Right? I can imagine John this whole time. And as he thinks back on this story, he remembers the little boy and he goes, of course. The boy. There was only one boy. Think about all the other people. All the other 5,000 men that were there. Right? One little boy whose mother had packed him a lunch and said, go, listen to Jesus. And when he heard that Jesus needed something, he was the only one to offer what he had. There was no rich person who came in and was like, hey, let me chip in some money. There was no one else who said, hey, you know what, I could probably run home real quick and whip something up, because it seemed too big of a crowd. It seemed too big of a problem. No one had enough resources to give. But the little boy did. The faith of a little child, huh? The idealism of a young person. The energy, the excitement of someone who doesn't know any better. Think about that statement. Coming and offering his food. I've got food for Jesus. I've got food for Jesus. Luckily, Andrew was snarky enough to give it to him. Jesus, how far can this go? How far can this little bit go? How far can this little kid's little bit of food go? See, Andrew diminished the boy as well. Diminished the resources. But in doing that, he diminished God's capacity to work. But not Jesus. Jesus was thankful for that boy. Jesus was thankful for that food. And he was thankful for what God was about to do. So, church family, what do we do? What do we do with our resources? Right? You're not the biggest church in the conference. Have you ever diminished yourself because of that? Have you ever said, oh, our tithe isn't as good as others, or we don't have the facility, or we don't have this? Have you ever diminished that? Have you ever diminished your influence in your community? Oh, we're just a small group in this community. What can we do? Ooh. Have you ever diminished the resources you can give? You know what? I don't know the Bible good enough to give Bible lessons. You know what? I don't have the courage it takes to talk to strangers. You know what? That's just not what I do. I'm too scared. I don't have the money to help out in this particular place or instance. I don't have the strength. I don't have the time. I don't have enough of this. I don't have enough of that. What would happen if that little kid would have gone up and some wonderful entrepreneuring, well-caring man would have been like, you know what, son? I love what you're made of. This is great. I love what you want to give. But you know what? Go take that, eat that, get strong, and go be a farmer and grow lots of food so that you can help that way. Or hey, take that food and invest it in something else and grow that so that one day you'll have enough to give to everyone. God wasn't asking that kid to be the future. He was asking that kid to be the now. And that's the same thing he asks of each and every one of us in this room, no matter your age, no matter your gender, no matter your nationality. He is asking that of you right now, to glorify him with what you have at this moment. Does that mean we don't stop getting educated? No, of course not. Does it mean we don't try to invest? Well, no, that doesn't mean that at all either. It means we keep growing, but it means we use everything God has asked us to do now and we give it to him, knowing that he will do great things with it. God has already given this church. God has already given this youth. God has already given this community everything it needs to glorify God. God has already given you everything you need to do great things in this community for him. The key is don't diminish it. Be thankful and give it to him. When I was small, my brothers would tell me, you're too little. That would just make me angry. Did that make me a strong person? Not really. When we say to anyone in our church, hey, And here's the thing. Maybe we don't understand how to use certain people. Sometimes young people can be, you're into that. How do we use that? How did God use 5 loaves and 2 fishes? It may take some thinking. It may take some praying. But it's God's to determine how to use it. Our job is to bring people to Jesus. Our job is to show them what wonderful, marvelous things he will do, has already done, and will continue to do when we have faith enough to give him our 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And we can do that every day of our lives. And no matter how little you think you have, praise God. Because it's his, and he will do great things with it. Church, I believe you have been called to this place, to this time, to this purpose, with the resources you have right now in hand to glorify God and to tell people about Jesus soon coming. I believe that this particular match of people have been brought here today to glorify God with what you have been given today. No matter how little or how much it is, it's God's, and give glory to him. Because he will do miracles. Let's just hand it over to him.